You're listening to the Law Kong Express newsletter.
Hi, this is Joe Candy, and this is the Law Kong Express newsletter. On this, the first edition of the Law Kong Express newsletter, I'm going to tell you about an accident that I was a witness to, and how this has affected my views on the removal of Rosario Gutierrez's body. Then we'll talk about how in opening statements, gravely, will say not once, but twice, a claim about Rosalio's keys that I cannot find any evidence, any testimony. I'll talk about the journey that I went on to find the evidence, or the lack of evidence. Then, I want to talk to you about a new theory as to why Detective Anschutz skipped town on the defense. One of the most troubling things I find about this whole case is the lack of demonstration that was given to the jury. There's no demonstration of how Zach removes Rosario Gutierrez's body. We don't see any type of dummies brought into the court. We don't see any type of, 3D imaging or anything like this. So we don't know how the prosecution actually believes how Zach could have lifted Rosario Gutierrez off the floor. There's no demonstration on how Zach leaves the apartment with Rosario Gutierrez. How does he operate the doors if he's carrying Rosario Gutierrez's body? There's no demonstration of whether or not Rosario Gutierrez and Zach could have fit through the same doorway at the same time. Because to me, it's very natural to think of Rosario Gutierrez's body being drugged through a doorway. But there's no evidence. There's no drag marks. There's no evidence of going down that small hill, whether he used the stairs or whether he went into the grass. There is a small hill going into the parking lot. There's no evidence of a body being drugged there. And there's no conversation as to how Zach would have even controlled Rosario Gutierrez's weight, on his shoulder or something like this, going down that small hill. And then you have the van itself. Again, how does Zach open up the van to place Rosario Gutierrez's body? It would seem very natural that Zach would have had to put Rosario Gutierrez's body down. And the state is claiming that Zach had to remove carpet because there was so much blood. Rosalio's body would have been probably leaning against the van, which they didn't find any blood on the outside of the van, and there's no blood on the asphalt. We have the trackers that come into trial, and there's no demonstration on what the true capabilities of these trackers are. All we're really given is the manufacturer's description of these trackers. There's no proof that they can do anything. Everything about the trackers is pretty much left to the imagination of the jury. And they have to fill in all these gaps. They didn't even have someone bring in the same model or a similar model and show us how it could have been done. We didn't have a guy in a room throwing a phone across the room. There's just no demonstration whatsoever. The lack of demonstration of the timeline, the lack of demonstration of showing us how Zach could have taken any alternative route to avoid cameras and have made the time back to Mequon. So now I'd like to talk to you about a demonstration that I saw, a demonstration that I was a witness to. The following happened on June 1st. I was at a relative's home to take them grocery shopping. They're 80 years old, they walk with a cane, they no longer drive. So we have a quick breakfast, I'm cleaning up, and they trip in their hallway. They don't remember if they tripped over their cane or if their feet may have got stuck in the carpet with these orthopedic shoes that they have, But out of the corner of my eye, I see them flying through the air kind of thing, right by the staircase. So this is a split foyer home, small hallway, goes into the staircase, just outside the kitchen. and I see them, just basically hit that ground, like kind of like Pete Rose, if you will, sliding into home plate. And I thought for sure that they were going to have all kinds of broken teeth from the hand railing in the stairwell. And sure enough, there was blood. And what it was, their glasses had dug into the bridge of their nose when they fell. And the first thing out of my mouth was, "Oh my God, stay down," because they were trying to get up, And they kept complaining about their shoulder. And I'm hoping that they just bruised themselves. As soon as I saw them fall, I'm like, well, I'm not getting groceries today. My best hope was that I could get them up, sit them on a couch, and just rest for the day, kind of thing. I wasn't thinking about concussions. I wasn't thinking about, internal injuries. I was just thinking, wow, they had a pretty nasty fall here, and they're hurt. So we got the bleeding to stop on the face, and I went and I got an ice pack, and just trying to get them to rest for a few minutes so we can figure out what we're going to do here. Now, what I haven't mentioned is that my relative is over 200 pounds, and so am I. You know, so when they're on the ground, it's very hard for me not to think about Rogelio Gutierrez and how his body would have been moved. And I'm looking at my relative's body, and quite frankly, I couldn't figure out how to get leverage. I couldn't figure out how to get my arms underneath them the way I really needed to because they're kind of a wide person. I just I just could not figure out how to get the leverage I need to get this person off the floor. And they're alert. They're groggy, and they're trying. They continually try to pick themselves up off the floor, and they can kind of get into that yoga pose, the cobra, as some people might call it, or upward dog kind of thing, and then they just kind of collapse, and they keep complaining about their shoulder. That there's something like I can't really work my arm. It feels funny, and so these thoughts of maybe they separate their shoulder, maybe it's a dislocation, maybe it's some type of rotator damage. I don't know. But it took a lot of negotiation. They did not want, you know, ambulances to show up or anything like this. So we tried for a long time before negotiations finally broke down and they gave in and allowed for a phone call. And so when fire and rescue came, we had a lot of men show up. And what they did was they sent the two biggest guys. These guys were both over 6 foot tall, and both of them were over 280 pounds. And it took these two men, plus my relative, to help get them into a seated position where they could put a sling on. And then they helped my relative down the stairs, did the whole gurney bit, and slammed it into the ambulance, and off they went. My relative did, in fact, break their arm. So now you have a relative who walks with a cane and also has a broken arm. And that's where I've been, since June 1st, is really with my relative. I've had very little time to participate in all these videos that are being made, and I've been lucky that I've been able to listen to everything that Solomon has done, all these interviews, and but other than maybe doing some super chats here and there, I haven't been able to do anything. So here I am, 5 o'clock in the morning, talking to a microphone, hoping that it sounds good, that I even have time to edit this. So we've covered demonstrations and my personal experience. Now I want to talk to you about something that I found missing in this tribe. One night, I find myself brushing my teeth, and I'm thinking about different scenarios with Rogelio. I'm thinking about what evidence do we have that he actually dropped off his children. the mother of the son, says that she didn't see Rosalio. She says her fiance did, which wasn't challenged. And the mother of the daughter of Rosalio says she did see Rosalio, and she even had a fairly lengthy conversation with him. And I started thinking about who would have a spare key to his apartment, just trying to figure out, could the phone have been placed later in the apartment after the police had done their investigation? So you think about the children, you think about the children's parents, you think about whether or not Mike Campbell or Erica may have had a spare key, because we know through Rosalio's mother's testimony that Rosalio did visit Colorado, I believe in December, because his mother had some type of, I don't know if it was like a graduation ceremony or something. I thought she said something about her great accomplishment, her great achievement, something like that. I didn't quite follow. But we're led to believe that Rosalio had gone to Colorado. So while he's in Colorado, was somebody getting his mail? When he was in Colorado, was somebody watering the plants? And I thought, I take that and you think, well, did the children ever have pets, like a gerbil or a lizard or something like that somebody would have come to the apartment to take care of, right? Just to explain how possibly somebody could get back into the apartment later. And not knowing, and I think it would have been important to show us how the apartment was sealed or not sealed, whether or not that window in Rosalio's bedroom was ever locked. So while these things are floating in my head, it just dawns on me, I don't know anything about Rosalio's keys.
You find that man's keys, you will find the bastard that did.
Right? Whether or not he would have his car keys and his apartment keys together on the same lanyard or something, It just, you start to think about, this isn't making sense. Why don't I know more about his keys? Why can't I just go, on day 5, they clearly showed. On day 3, they clearly showed pictures of his keys. This kind of led me onto this journey of trying to figure out, where are his keys? What is the evidence of the keys? So I started looking at YouTube transcripts, and I went with all the police, detectives, etc., that I knew had some type of testimony about Rosalio's apartment. And I just put in the word key. And I was shocked at what I found. The only police officer saying anything that I could find about key was Correa on day 12. And it was just a hypothetical about how they found the door locked and how the door could have been locked. So somebody could have used the key to the apartment from the outside to lock the door. That was it. Then I went to opening statements, and Gravely will just say twice. He'll say at 1 hour and 36 minutes, if you're looking, unfortunately, at the Law and Crime video on day 1.
Rosalio's vehicles are still at the residence. His keys are there. There is a large amount of blood.
5 minutes later, he's just going to repeat. About 1 hour, 41 minutes in, he's just going to say it again. And the keys are there, blah, blah, blah,
Rosalio's keys are there. His wallet has ended up on the couch.
And so I thought, okay, I've missed something, right? I missed something. I went on discussion, a group here, and I asked a question about the keys, and and then I went back to every day of the trial, and I did that keyword search, just for the word keys, anything like this. And I didn't find anything changed. There are times when people are using the word key as in a phrase of, something is essential, that kind of thing. This is key to the defense, something like that. His keys will only be mentioned these 3 times. So that led me on to a marathon. I've gone through the trial, looking through the transcripts through YouTube. Wasn't sure if that was 100% accurate. Wasn't So, and it took me about 3.5 days, mostly on 2X, and there were times when I was watching more than one testimony at the same time, laptop and a cell phone going off at the same time. But I blew through the entire trial, trying to find any evidence. And you stop anytime there was a picture of Rosalio's apartment. I'm looking for those keys. That's the focus. Anything that has to do with his keys, anything that could lead me to information about his keys. Going through this entire trial, I mean, just spending those hours and hours and hours of listening to Gravely at 2X, and then having to stop to make sure that I didn't miss something.
You find that man's case, you will find the bastard that did.
If you follow the natural pattern of Rosalio does take his kids home. He comes back to the parking lot of the apartment complex. He's going to take his keys out of the ignition. He more likely will either put the keys in one of his pockets, or he'll keep them in his hand to operate the door of his apartment. On the other side of the door, he's going to lay his keys down or put them back in a pocket, right? So he might have a peg, something that hangs up that he could just hang his keys on. He might have, people are kind of creatures of habit. He might have that kind of space on one of those tiny tables with all the knickknacks that he just generally just throws his keys down on when he walks through the door. It's not like if we listen to and believe the story of the prosecution when they believe Rosalio is attacked, which they have actually never established, and someday we'll get into that. There isn't this likelihood of his keys being lost, right? There isn't this. His keys, in my mind, his keys should be as visible as that wallet. Because even if he put his keys in his pants pocket, chances are they would have been on top of the wallet. And if the theory is that his pants were, somebody picked his pants to get to the wallet, then to me the natural thing would have been that his keys would have fallen out. And the fact that we can't find his keys, or the fact that I can't find his keys, leads me to believe that Rosalio may have been attacked for something that one of his keys may have opened. So there might be a locker somewhere. There might be a storage unit back in that time. There may have been something associated with the baseball team where he stored something that he wasn't supposed to. We don't know. I just can't find any testimony that backs Gravely up that the keys were in fact found in that apartment. I don't see it in any pictures. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm right. It just means I couldn't find it, right? So I would challenge any of you to go back and look at the trial and try to find his keys. There's no reason for Zach to take Rosalio's keys, right? If our theory is that Zach is this planned killer, blah, 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 there's no reason for Zach to hold on to Rosalio's keys. Only someone in Rosalio's circle, someone that he worked with, someone that he was friends with, someone that he was a relative with, would understand the value of Rosalio's keys. Those keys would have been completely worthless to Zach.
The cops missed the freezer. A missing man, and they didn't even look for medication in the fridge, let alone the freezer. Junior's phone was allegedly found days later in that freezer.
All right, now we have to talk about on-shoots. And it's time to talk about a theory as to why he really doesn't show up for court for the defense. Heard about subpoena running out. There have been some rumors that maybe there was something in his history as a police officer / detective that might come out in this trial that could damage his reputation. All this and more could be true. But something very interesting happens on day 12 when Correa is on the stand and Zach's lawyer, Nicole, has him on cross. So now I'm going to play you a little bit of this so you can see maybe where I'm going.
So in this case then, why did no one go into the refrigerator or freezer?
I can't answer that. I was not involved in the actual search, so I don't think I can answer that completely. So why did I not go into the refrigerator is because I was there specifically for the walkthrough, And then our evidence technicians kind of go in and do that work.
And from
I think it's a mischaracterization of the evidence. I believe Officer Anschutz indicated he did go into the refrigerator and freezer. I believe he said he did.
I don't remember that, but
So let's play what Gravely said again.
I think it's a mischaracterization of the evidence. I believe Officer Anschutz indicated he did go into the refrigerator and freezer. I believe he said he did.
So you might be thinking, Gravely says a lot of things that just aren't true. But this might be a case where you have someone who has forgotten that he's not supposed to say something, right? What if what he's saying is actually true? What if he's actually admitting that he had a conversation with Anschutz? And if there was a conversation, what if Anschutz did tell him, I looked in the freezer, I didn't see a damn phone. During this whole trial, Nicole has been telling the jury what a bad job the police have done. Now, if the police did look in that freezer, if Anschutz did go into that freezer and didn't find it, that means that that phone was planted later. Or that Nicole has been right, that these police do a lousy job and that they cannot be trusted. If you look at the transcripts of Anschutz's testimony, you will find that he was never asked about the refrigerator or the freezer. There is no testimony from his mouth about the refrigerator and the freezer. So I don't know what Gravely's talking about. Has he had private conversations that the defense has no record of? Is there exculpatory evidence that the defense never got? Is there evidence of them looking in that freezer and not finding that phone until after Zach's in prison? When you add it up, the fact that we've had 3 witnesses change their story after spending time with the DA, when we rely on jailhouse snitches, is it that far-fetched to believe that there is exculpatory evidence that has been hidden from the defense? There is no way that Anschutz is ever going to get on that stand. There is no way that he's not going to leave town if he has to answer for what Gravely said. His choices are to leave town, to possibly perjure himself if he's asked about this refrigerator freezer situation. His choice is to tell the truth and make the cops look bad, to make the DA look bad. It makes Zach look far more innocent in the eyes of the jury. This is a no-win situation. He has to not be there. Now, this is just a theory. It's just something cooking in my brain. I could be way off. But what I would encourage everyone is to continue to look at Rosalio's apartment, because I have found that his apartment is completely radioactive to the state's case. Alright, that's going to do it for this first edition of the Law Kong Express newsletter. Thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for listening to me ramble here. Just continue to fight, warriors. God bless everyone. The Anderson family. Let's free Zachariah Anderson. Thank you very much.
Who knows about it? That's a lot of work. You set the apartment on fire.